morning, traders. This is Alex with the StockMatrix program. It's Saturday, October 11th, 2025. We did have some action finally, a little corrective measure on the stock market, especially on the indexes, and we'll go through those. Here is my standard intro, my CBOT man 33, my handle. Oops, let me get this in frame. And you can see I did post these trades here this morning that we had Friday, and you can review that. Let's move on to my portfolio page, which is on bar chart. We use their free one portfolio that you can put in there, and yeah, I'm just kind of hanging around 50 grand. I mean, it was up to I think 65, and then with the crunch that we had. Now, of course, we do have about half our puts, so we really can't get hurt too bad unless it's some screwy Louis individual strike on the ones that I got. And you can review that. And we had a few other trades earlier. So now the Google was a roll, so we rolled it and took out the $5,500, and then so the last trade was a loser for 516 because of the roll, right? If we didn't roll, it would have been a profit of 5 grand or whatever. So a little flip flop. Again, these options, everybody, the big boys have options on too, so they're managing it just like I am. The tendencies to roll 90 days, 180 days from a low or a particular high is pretty important because of the options that are going off. All right, you can review that. Let's get into frame here. All right, let's get our statistical page. You can see we do have some annuals that came in. Again, today's the 11th, Saturday, right? So these are ones over the weekend. Adobe has a couple, which again made a pretty aggressive spike down today or Friday. NVIDIA has also one coming up Monday. You can look at these. Now we did have, I didn't really mention it too much, but 2025 is a cycle of 45, and that's what these are all 45s. I keep track of them, right? 90's coming up, right? So that's why it's highlighted. Pretty important one. 360 is another one, which I didn't highlight. But 225, now that's the year, right? 2025. Now that's also a GAN number. So you look back, today's Saturday, so that'd have been like Monday, Tuesday, I guess, and see what the market did if that was a high or low. Pretty important to me, right? Numerology kind of involved. We have a Coke coming up at 180, right, which is half of a revolution or opposition, right? I mean, depending how you look at it. So I keep track of those as a mental note. You can see we're 20 days past the solar. Here's the trades on the stock side, right? Now we were using options, but I got to keep track of the stock side. Now we have 3 down on the short-term trend, which again, it was down a couple weeks ago. So it's kind of leaning towards some type of correction. Now we're actually down 1. So we have the puts that we have on right now is Meta, Coke. Now puts meaning bearish, right? Market's going down. We make money on the put side when the market goes down. Google, Amazon, Lynn, Adobe, Procter & Gamble, JP Morgan, and Cintas. So we have over half of our positions are puts. So we really can't get hurt if something big gap happens or war breaks out, or how these markets react, right? So we can't get hurt too bad. So that's a good news. I mean, that's the advantage of trading a system. I don't care if it goes up or down. I just want it to make money, right? I'm not trying to pick the markets. I'm not trying to say, "Who put my chest? I called Meta low and I made 10,000." Hang on a second. Yeah. Freaking AI freaking picked up my conversation on Google. Okay. All right, let's go to the charts. I won't take up too much of your time. Here's NVIDIA. Again, the stop is moved up to, actually it's here yet. I don't know why I moved that one. And again, 3s, right? So these are our last 3s. Now, this time zone, the next one is October 13th, which is Monday. So at 1804. So again, this one does occur after the close. Now I actually charted mine since the previous one was October 7th at 3 in the morning and the markets weren't open. So I went ahead and took the 6th close. So on all my charts, right? So just so you know, this kind of is the 1-to-1 coming off the low. Again, 1 moon period over, quarter moon period over for 1 square of 9 up. Now fraction of the square of 9. And again, we'll see. I mean, I think it's kind of important. If you can see, we're on the edge. Now, the solar eclipse is obvious support, so if you're wanting to buy a dip on any of these, if I forget to mention that, and the solar was down here, this would be the dip to buy. Now, that would turn the short-term trend down. But again, you got to at least put stops down here somewhere if you do buy this break onto the solar, because again, it's acting a little sickly just can't get going right now. We made new highs. This is really the long-term support. So if you're buying puts against them, out of the money puts, 155 puts might make sense there too. A year out or something. Here's Meta. Again, kind of an outside period. It just chipped chop. You can see this is where our stop again. Here was our 3, right? Now this was an outside period, so I gave it one more, which I always do. So we got stopped in here. Did close lower than where we got in. You can see though these two solar eclipses are support on a longer. If you're waiting for a longer term break in Meta, makes sense, right? Now if you're bearish, you'd be selling it up against the solar eclipse and then risking the highs. Here's Coke, just kind of trying to make a bottom. You can see we're right in the hunt. This is the stop area at 67.60. Until then, I guess you just got to be patient. Here's Google, and you can see the lows off the chart. Oops, dang it, sorry. Let me get a little more data on there. You can see it's off the chart. That's how aggressive this move has been. We got short here, which makes sense, right? I mean, if it's a bear and this was the bull, again, what I've always mentioned, this house has a poor foundation, right? This move, the all-time high move, was built on a flim-flam stuff. There was no foundation. I don't like that. I bitch about that. Be careful, right? Because if it starts breaking, there's nothing here to stop it. Nothing, technically. Now, maybe these old highs, right? And maybe this one-to-one and then cardinal cross areas. I mean, you do have some areas of support, but man, the likelihood of it breaking back to here is pretty real, in my opinion. 160 to 150. People can't believe that, but here's Microsoft, kind of hoovering, right? I should draw a one-to-one off these lows. I hate to just clip and paste because it's always wild. Oh, way down here it is. On Excel, it's kind of always screwy. But anyway, that's kind of important, right? The stops, I think, are poorly placed for the system, but the system don't care what I think. StockMatrix program makes money because it don't care. It just follows a simple formula for, simple algorithm. But we have kind of an outside period up. We had a big push, some secondary event, failed so far. Now again, it might be gap higher tomorrow or Monday, and we'll be just fine. Here's Amazon. Again, it punched out the high, so the short-term trend is up because again we went 2 boxes above, right, on my system, but then closed way down here. Now again, Monday will tell the tale. If it gaps down, I could see it closing down in here, maybe even busting this low out to run stops, and that might be it, right? Stops will get pushed down to here after Monday's close, unless it rallies. Here is Apple. Stops down here. Hate to lose all that back, but there's not much you can do, right? Actually, yeah, stops are here, so it's right on the solar eclipse close. So again, a buying opportunity. If you were a trader, you would have had orders in at 245.05 or maybe 245.10, and then you'd have got probably filled, I assume. Let's go to Tesla again. Kind of just there, right? The solar eclipse is kind of a high so far. So I don't know. Shit, this thing is just a chopper. Coming off these other old lows. Has a little foundation, a little more than some. I mean, it didn't get flying right away. It kind of, this is part of the bottom, right? This triangle. But I can see it definitely breaking back into the powerhouse area right in here, probably somewhere where you have to go back and look at the volume. I think the volume of trade in this zone, whatever there's the most average of, that'll be the logical support. Again, I don't have that data in front of me here, but that's what I would be looking at. Here's Lynn. The stops are up over the highs, not over the new high. It's like right here, which I don't like, but we got stopped in here. Again, it's been a chippity chopper, so it's hard to assume that this is just going to be the biggest bear trade in history. I mean, it might, right? That's why you do what you do, but the odds are this was the previous solar eclipse right in here. You can see that it's just kind of there. Solar eclipse here, solar eclipse here. So, as a solar eclipse, looking at it from a annual event, it hasn't made a new high in a year and a half, basically on a close basis, right? Now it did here by a tick, but man, that's not strong. I mean, you like to see a market trend. That's not a trend. Trend is sideways. So if you're playing a sideways activity by selling calls and selling puts, you'd be probably making pretty good money. Here's ED, kind of made a low on the solar eclipse, squaring out of the range, right? Squaring this blue dotted line, squaring out of the range on a moon basis, a 1x1. So again, the logicalness here would be this is some area of resistance and these old highs, I guess. So these are the cardinal cross areas, again, cardinal cross one-to-one zones, as well as this old high. So it makes sense that we could go up there, maybe even tick it out, right, knowing how these markets react. But the ED is opposite, right? And that's what I've been preaching for the last, since we got long in here, a few weeks back. I go, man, be careful being heavily long all these bigger stocks, because when ED was making its highs, all the other stocks were making their lows, right? Like Google, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, IBM, all those were making lows when this was making highs. So this has been an opposite effect. So it gave you the kind of the warning sign to be awfully cautious. And we preached that pretty hard in our last few videos. Here's Adobe, still a bottom. Now the system got short here inside this zone. Stops are here. But as a longer term trade, that's a confirmed bottom. But man, it just can't get going. Adobe's such a pooch. That's a high dollar stock, right? $4 stock. Just there's some fundamental I'm in the back of my mind saying just don't be long Adobe. But technically it looks like a long-term bottom. But if it makes new low, you got to get out. That's all there's to it. IBM, another push, one of them that made the high this week. Only one out of the 17 select stocks that made its high in this moon period so far. But man, what an ugly trade. Push new highs again, which makes sense, right? That's your bull trap. If you follow my stuff, those bull traps I kind of wait for. And down, outside reversal so far, outside down. Again, we got one more day. Monday, but outside down day or moon period, support's way down here. Man, I hate to get stopped out way down there. It would just drive me nuts. But again, the stops will get pushed to here, right? So then after Monday, so that's still a lot of risk. I mean, geez, you're talking damn near $30-$40. Here's BK. Another one of the fascinating bull trends, not gaps. It just traded. It's a bank stock. The short-term trends down. Stops are fairly tight, so. Makes sense that we'll probably see us get stopped out of that and into a short position here maybe next week. Here's Procter & Gamble. Again, an outside period down. Stops are above that by a tick, right? Here's our three. Again, we're up here because this, to me, I consider that an outside period with follow through, right? So now we're almost in new lows, but not quite. Procter & Gamble is a sick pup. Not good for trading unless I would have to, if I was going to trade Procter & Gamble again, I don't think I'd add it into my deal because you'd have to, it's so slow that you need to expand it beyond the one moon phase, right? So, because too many trades, too in and out, just not my cup of tea. It's too slow. JPM, again, got short here. Stops are up here again because of an outside period. So, the solar eclipse basically was the high. So, again, a lot of these were. So, use extreme caution, just buying it willy-nilly, right? If you have to buy, use the calls, right? If the system's especially short, right? Don't just go in and buy a bunch of shares. Especially if you're using margins, don't do that. I would just buy a call or two, whatever you feel comfortable with. Again, that 100 shares of JP Morgan, is $6,000 on the option versus 32,000, and that's 3 and 4 months out. Here's Coinbase, again, secondary event. Here's the one-to-one. Here is also the Cardinal Cross area, so it makes sense that we kind of stopped there, had a crappy close, but still close. We're still so far making a higher high and a higher low. Stops are down here. I should probably. I'm going to have to do it another day. I'm trying to make this video quick, but I wanted to kind of look at the chart on Bitcoin and kind of compare it. Here's Cintas. Again, the highs were made a while ago now, right? We're 135 degrees over next moon period will be, we're 135 degrees, or 135 calendar days, basically, from the high. So a true bear, again, this swing down, this broke the swing. Here's your main swing pivot. Went up secondary event, but this was your main pivot, so that's a negatory. Now, again, we mentioned the support of the two solars. They didn't slow it down either. So there's another one back here, which I don't know. Let me get it on the screen. Yeah, these two solars, and then now this one. So that if it goes down a whole lot, this will be the resistance to sell against, right? So if you're a bear, I wouldn't panic and feel like you missed it. Eventually, we'll probably have a pop back to this area to check it out. Maybe, again, unknown. So that's it. I'm going to sign off. Everybody have a good weekend and be a little cautious here for the next. Again, we're trading within the solar eclipse zone, right? So my caution has been up for a while, actually since the lunar. Back in here, I've been like, oh god, This is when your volatility can really happen, and then all the way. We have a shortened next solar eclipse. Let me see if I got it on here. Yeah, this is very short. It's a full moon period short, so about 30 days shorter than normal. So this is pretty odd. So, I'm more of a commodity guy, but I'll be interesting to see how this translates in the stocks. Again, the system will be quitting here, and probably will quit it on the 10th, or the 6th is when we got in. So I was going to do 1 year test period. Not a whole lot of likes or anything, so people must not care. Been successful though, so hopefully the people that have followed it have appreciated it. All right, I'm going to sign off. Everyone have a rest of your great weekend.